In 20 years of scanning the horizon through a thermal scope, from the mountains of Kandahar to the bushveld of the Serengeti, I thought I had categorized every shape of death this world could offer. I was wrong. It is 400 hours. My shift as a senior ranger is supposed to be a quiet patrol along the perimeter of the old mining sector, a graveyard of rusted iron and bad memories. But my thermal imaging monocular picks up a heat signature that violates every biological rule I know. It isn't a poacher, and it isn't prey. It's a massive, distorted blob of heat, dragging a cold, dead void around its midsection. Distance, 300 meters. Wind, negligible. I adjust the focus, expecting a glitch. Instead, I see a nightmare walking. It's a male lion, but he moves with the heavy, clanking gait of a prisoner of war. This is not natural selection. This is an anomaly that veterans like myself are trained to spot, but never trained to process. Something has gone terribly mechanically wrong in the heart of the wild. I move closer, dropping into the tall grass, switching to optical binoculars as the first light of dawn bleeds over the horizon. What I see through the lens makes my stomach turn, a reaction I haven't felt since my days in the infantry. This isn't just an injury, it is a slow-motion execution. The lion is wearing a massive industrial tractor tire around his waist like a corset made of hell. It's a thick, steel-reinforced rubber ring, likely weighing 40 kilograms. But the horror lies in the details. The tire hasn't just sat on his skin, it has paused the timeline of his biological development. His hindquarters are atrophied, withered like an old man's, while his front shoulders are grotesquely over-muscled from dragging this dead weight. The rubber has cut through the dermis, through the fat, and is now grinding directly against the pelvic bone. I can see the festering weep of necrosis around the rim, a black, oily discharge that mixes with the morning dew. He looks less like an animal and more like a failed experiment, a living corpse squeezing out its last bit of strength against a man-made curse. To understand this level of suffering, you have to rewind the clock, back to a time before the pain became his only reality. 3 years ago, this area wasn't just a patrol route, it was an illegal dumping ground for the mining consortiums. Imagine a curious cub, barely 6 months old, full of play and devoid of caution. He finds this tire, a strange, chewy, rolling toy left behind by humans. He sticks his head through it, then his front legs. It's a game. It fits loosely around his waist, a meaningless necklace. But nature has a cruel, irreversible rule. Flesh grows, inorganic matter does not. As the seasons turned, he expanded. His ribcage widened, his mane began to sprout. But the tire remained an unyielding constant. It went from a toy to a collar, from a collar to a shackle, and finally to a constrictor. It was a tragic accident born of innocence. A slow-acting trap that didn't snap shut in a second, but closed in over 1,000 days. Fate didn't kill him. It sentenced him to life in a prison he carried on his back. Initially, there must have been a struggle. I can reconstruct the scene based on the scars I see on the rubber itself. Deep gouges where his claws tried to tear the foreign object away. He would have thrashed against trees, rolled in the dust, biting at the black ring until his gums bled. His family, the pride, likely tried to help. Lions are tactile creatures. They would have groomed him, perhaps pulled at the tire with their teeth, confused by this hard, scentless parasite clinging to their kin. But physics is indifferent to effort. The steel belts inside the tire are designed to withstand tons of pressure. A lion's jaw, powerful as it is, couldn't breach the industrial integrity. Every attempt to remove it likely only twisted the rubber deeper into the raw wounds, teaching him a painful lesson. Resistance is futile. So he stopped fighting the tire and started fighting the pain. Day after agonizing day, then came the inevitable social death. In the wild, weakness is a beacon for disaster and a liability for the group. A male lion's destiny is to defend, to patrol, to fight. He could do none of these. As he reached sexual maturity, the tire crippled his gait, making him unable to keep up with the hunt. He became a burden. I can imagine the moment the pride had to make the choice. They didn't chase him away with malice. They simply moved on, and he couldn't follow. The distance between them grew. 10 meters, 100 meters, a kilometer, until he was alone. The silence of the savanna is terrifying when you are solitary. stripped of his rank, his family, and his future. He became a ghost. The psychological destruction would be absolute. Lions are social beings. Isolation is a form of torture as potent as the physical wound. He was a king without a kingdom, left to rot in the wasteland of our trash. Time became his enemy. The tire became his skeleton. As he continued to grow, his body had to deform to accommodate the constriction. His spine is likely curved, forced into a permanent hunch. His internal organs, liver, kidneys, intestines, have been compressed into a space half the size they require. It is a medical miracle he is still breathing, a testament to the sheer, stubborn will of a predator. But this is not living. This is a survival hell. Every step sends a shockwave of agony through his infected pelvis. He cannot lie down comfortably. He cannot run. He can barely defecate. He is a wasteland king, ruling over nothing but his own suffering. A monster created by our negligence, haunting the edges of the map where no tourist dares to look. Suddenly, the static horror of the scope turns into a dynamic crisis. My radio crackles. I've called in the coordinates, but the vet team is 40 minutes out. That's 40 minutes too long. From the scrubland to the east, I see movement. Not the erratic wandering of grazers, but the coordinated, flowing shadows of a hyena clan. They have been tracking him. They know he is weak. To them, he isn't a lion. He's a walking buffet on a timer. The lead matriarch of the clan tests the perimeter, yipping a signal to the flankers. They are moving in for the kill. I am a ranger, and protocol dictates we let nature take its course. But this is not nature. This is an industrial murder. I flick the safety off my conscience. I am not just a witness today. I am the extraction team. I rack the slide of my signal flare gun and deploy the drone from my backpack. The objective has shifted. I must hold a defensive perimeter around a target that could kill me against an enemy that wants to eat him. The air changes. It's no longer a morning patrol. It's a siege. I launch the drone, a modified tactical quadcopter I call the Buzzard. It screams into the air, its rotors whining at a high pitch that irritates the sensitive ears of the predators. I dive it aggressively towards the hyena pack, using it like a guided missile without a warhead. They scatter, confused by the mechanical hornet. Simultaneously, I fire a magnesium flare into the dry riverbed between the lion and the approaching clan. The blinding white light and the hissing smoke create a temporary wall of fear. This is asymmetric warfare, using technology to disrupt the primal hierarchy. For a few minutes, the wasteland king looks at me, or rather, at the drone hovering above him. He doesn't understand that the buzzing fly is his air support. He just knows the biting dogs have backed off. I'm buying him time with batteries and chemicals. Finally, dust on the horizon. The vet vehicle arrives, tearing through the brush. We don't have time for pleasantries. The dart is fired, a pink plume hitting the lion's flank. He spins, roars a sound that is half fury, half exhaustion, and then slumps. We rush in. Now the battlefield changes from tactical to medical. The vet, Sarah, kneels in the dirt, her hands moving fast. I check the vitals. Heart rate is erratic, 120 beats per minute, way too high. Temperature is spiking from sepsis. His weight is shocking. Underneath the massive head and shoulders, his ribs are protruding like the wreckage of a ship. He is starving. We hook up the monitors. The beeping of the pulse oximeter is the only sound in the vast silence. It's a countdown. We are analyzing a dying creature, quantifying his pain into data points. Infection markers are critical. If we don't get this off now, the shock alone will kill him. The first attempt is a disaster. We try heavy-duty bolt cutters on the tire. I squeeze the handles with everything I have, my triceps burning. But the jaws just chew at the rubber. We forgot that these are mining tires, reinforced with multiple layers of high-tensile steel cabling. It's like trying to cut through a tank's tread with a pair of scissors. The rubber is fused to his fur and skin with dried blood and pus. Every movement of the tire threatens to tear open the fragile tissue underneath. We are deadlocked. The anesthesia is ticking down. The hyenas are circling back, sensing the drop in activity. We need the heavy artillery. Sarah runs to the truck and pulls out the angle grinder. It's risky, the heat, the noise, the sparks. But we have no choice. Hold his head, Sarah commands. I move to the front. This is the moment. I place my hands, my human, calloused hands, onto the massive, scarred mane of a wild lion. I can feel the vibration of his snoring, the heat radiating from his skull. I am face to face with a predator that could crush my skull like a grape. Yet here I am, his anchor. Sarah fires up the grinder. The scream of metal on metal shatters the peace of the savanna. Sparks shower over us like golden rain. The smell is acrid, burning rubber, hot steel, and the distinct coppery scent of cauterized flesh. The lion twitches in his sleep, a low growl rumbling in his throat. I lean in, whispering commands that are really prayers. Easy, big man. Hold the line. Stay down. My sweat drips onto his nose. For 20 minutes, it is a war of millimeters. The disc cuts closer and closer to the skin. One slip, and we slice an artery. It is the most intense combat I have ever seen, and not a single bullet is fired. Then, with a final sickening thwack, the tension releases. The steel snaps. The tire falls open like a broken shell. The relief is short-lived. We pull the heavy rubber carcass away, revealing the raw pink hourglass indentation on his waist. It looks horrific, but the blood flow is returning. We reverse the sedative. He begins to wake up, groggy, stumbling, but we lingered too long. The noise of the grinder acted like a dinner bell. The hyenas are back, and this time the flare gun is empty. There are 20 of them. They see a lion that can barely stand, a human with a metal box, and a vet. They rush. The wasteland king tries to rise. He is weak, shaking, his legs numb from the sudden rush of circulation. But then, he does something that stops my heart. He doesn't run. He stumbles forward, placing his broken body between me and the pack. He lets out a roar, ragged, pathetic, but defiant. He is protecting us. It's a suicide stand. He is a soldier who refuses to die on his knees. I raise my rifle, prepared to fire into the dirt, prepared to cause chaos. But before I pull the trigger, the bush to my left explodes. A blur of tawny muscle hits the lead hyena like a freight train. It's not a male, it's a female. Massive, scarred, terrified eyes turning into slits of pure rage. She tears through the enemy line with a violence that is almost beautiful. It's absolute devastation. The hyenas panic, their formation crumbling under the assault of a healthy, furious lioness. This is the Deus ex machina, the god from the machine, but flesh and blood. She stands over the groggy male, snarling, daring them to come back. She isn't just a random lioness. The way she checks him, nuzzling the wound where the tire used to be, it's familiar. Later, back at base, I pull the memory cards from the long-range trail cameras we set up in that sector months ago. I fast-forward through weeks of footage, and there it is. The truth that brings tears to this old soldier's eyes. In grainy night vision, I see the trapped male sleeping in the grass. And in the background, night after night, sits the female. She never got too close, respecting the exile. But she never left. She chased off leopards. She led him to water. She was the shadow unit, the overwatch. She didn't abandon him. She was protecting him from a distance, waiting for a miracle she couldn't provide. The wasteland king wasn't a king at all. He was a beloved son, and his mother has been fighting this war alongside him for 2 years, unseen. The final shot of the day is burned into my retina. The vet truck is packing up. The sun is setting, painting the waste in hues of violent orange and purple. The male is walking away. His gait is still stiff, his waist absurdly thin, but he is free. The tire lies in the dust, a conquered enemy. Beside him walks the mother, their shoulders touching. They don't look back at me. They don't need to. I am just a mechanic who fixed a broken part of their world. I pick up the severed tire, heavy with steel and misery. It's just trash to the mining company. But to me, it's a trophy. We fought the industrial apocalypse today, and for once, life won. The war isn't over. But this battle is a victory.